Let's see. I think Sheila's up next. Are you here, Sheila?
Yep, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi. All right, I think our next speakers are here. So if you need to run to the bathroom or something, do it real fast, and then we'll get started in about 1 minute. Okay, Sarah, I see you're here. Is Matt here too?
I'm right here, Sheila. Hi.
Ah,
Hi.
okay. Let me find you both.
Yes, and we do have some slides to present, so should I test that out now?
Sure. I was gonna spotlight you both, but if you have, oh, why am I spotlighted? That's not what we wanted. Um, if you have slides, you can go right ahead and do that. Chris, yes, wash your hands, please. Well, if it makes you late, still do it.
Good advice. Okay.
All right, screen sharing looks good. All right, you guys, I know we only have 30 minutes with you guys today, so we'll go ahead and get started.
Great.
So welcome everybody. Welcome Sarah and Matt. Today we have Dr. Sara Farwell and Dr. Matt Zatonsky from Solutions Makers. Together, between the two of them, they have over 35 years experience in medicine, neuroscience, pharmaceuticals, and holistic wellness. So what they do is they help high performers get through things like burnout. And they also work with job seekers like all of us. So they have a quick presentation, and then we'll try to squeeze in some Q&A at the end as well.
Yeah, okay.
So
Well, thank
welcome.
you. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you so much for having Matt and I here, and thank you all for your service, and thank you for the opportunity for us to share some of our maybe tips and solutions for your job application process and job hunting. So I'm Sara. I'm a scientist and a nutritionist, and I was previously in the pharmaceutical industry, and I've made a couple of career shifts, and now I'm a coach with Matt, and I focus on physical performance and resilience.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matt. I'm a physician. I'm a surgeon by training, and I have changed careers multiple times in my life, from academia to clinical medicine, from public to private sectors. I moved to corporate environments. I managed small companies, and the last 15 years I spent in a big pharma. I lead large teams. I hire people. I fire people, but I also coach them, and I'm really well embedded in the current market, and I'm here to help you today to how to navigate that space. So hopefully you can get the most out of the next 30 minutes with us.
Yes, and what we really try to help people do is help your brain work for you rather than against you or set you up into some self-sabotage. And since we do have just a little bit of time together today, we wanted to give you some four of the most frequently asked questions that we get. Some of this is also based on the current challenges we know that you and other candidates might be experiencing. So we wanted to give you the opportunity to lead us in how you think our time together might be the most valuable. So feel free to vote in the chat, one of these four, and then we'll jump right in there. Or you can come off mute. That's completely great too. But of the four directions we can take our conversation today, we have AI in the application process. We have communicating clearly your transferable skills, winning the interview, or salary negotiations.
I think for me, hello, my name's Chris, by the way. Nice to meet
Hi.
y'all. Hey, I think for me, it's the transferable skills. I think probably for me, where it's the hardest is translating, military speak into civilian speak. Whether it be positions held and what levels those positions are, being like an NCOIC and what that translates to the civilian side, or if you were a mass comm functional manager, what that, is to the civilian side, and then kind of leveraging some of your skills and experience, specifically some of those soft skills. Cause like, for instance, like we have, like Army infantry, for instance, and they'll say, well, my job doesn't translate to the civilian. Well, there are skills that you pick up in infantry that will translate to the civilian sector, right? Because you're leading
Absolutely.
teams, in very high stress environments, and if you could find a way to kind of leverage and communicate that, I think that'll be helpful. That's where I feel like I've had the hardest time is how do I communicate those after 20 years of the military brainwashing me, to speak a certain way? How do I, translate that to the civilian sector? At least that's for me.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes, and I think we can see in the comments that clearly number 3, Sarah seems to be getting the most attention. So how about we start with this
And a
one,
good
and
bit of
depending on
2
what,
as well.
yes, and a good bit of 2. So we can probably combine the elements of the transferability of the skills in the interview process and see where we can take it from here. So
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, let's jump straight, Sarah, to the winning the interview then, and then we try to embed everything.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe you've seen this before, and how you will tell your story when you're in an interview. This could be for behavioral questions or experience questions in this sort of STAR method. So you set up the situation, you put it into context, what you were asked to do or the specific task that you had, the actions you took, and then the result. So the outcome of whatever that story is that you're explaining. And another thing that is part of interviewing is an extension of the STAR. So not just what it was, what you did, what the outcome was, but what did you learn? And what would you do differently as a result of that experience? So extending this beyond that is really one way to start separating yourself and your ability to critically think through the answer. And that's often people will be able to set this up ahead of time and be brief and invite the interviewer to ask you more questions. But this is not how you actually win the interview. These are a way to prepare, and it's essential for you to be ready with situations that are transferable. But what we want to share with you is what it really takes to win the interview.
Yes, and so let's break this down into the basic steps in a way. Interview, when you are able to get the face-to-face time with an interviewer, many of us assume that the STAR process, or the process of asking behavioral interview questions, it's about you sharing something about your past, and that nailing those questions is what gets you the job. But the truth is, as Sara just outlined, that's just not the case. The STAR in the process is just the language, that's the formalized type of communication that is being used in an interview. And it creates a little bit of a paradox where this behavioral question types of systems, tell me about an example when you have done something in a particular way, makes us believe that we need to have a specific past or specific experience or give specific answer that the interviewer is expecting, because depending on those answers, we will or will not get a job. And while partially this is true, and we're going to come back to this later, this is not the point of the interview process. Because at the end of that process is a human or humans that will make a decision who will be the person working with them. And many times they make that decision within the first 30 seconds of the interview. And the rest is just a show of sorts. So the most important thing to remember when you are able to land a face-to-face interview, that this process or that particular part of the interview process is not about your past experience. Your job is not to answer the questions correctly using a particular template. This is just the language you use. Your job is to win the interviewer. It's to convince the person that is sitting across the table that you are the person that they want to work with. And the reality of human decision making is that most people, once they feel that you remind them the most of themselves, you will be the person that will be most likely to get hired. Again, your goal is not to correctly answer the questions. Your job is to connect with an interviewer and show the interviewer that you are as similar to them as you can be, so that they feel connected, they see themselves in you, because that's how humans end up making decisions. So Sarah, let's break this down maybe into little steps in how to make that happen. Because during that formal interviewing process, most of the people who go through the interview, they just focus on answering those questions. But this is just something that needs to be learned and used as a language to communicate who you are or who you want the interviewer to see, and also try to get and read the room as much as you can to try to understand during that brief process as much about them so you can tailor your answers to the person that you're speaking to. Now, your experiences and the answers you give can be completely made up. It doesn't really matter. It's very often a tick box exercise. The interviewers will have sheets of paper with tick boxes and say, okay, if we're evaluating your decision making and they ask you a question, tell us about the time when you had to make a difficult decision. They're looking for specific things, and the specific things that they are looking for, you can find them online. You can Google them. You can buy books on Amazon that will tell you exactly what those questions mean and what tick boxes to tick. And those answers, ideally, you would have memorized and be able to tailor and adapt those responses to the interviewer in any given moment. But you're just using them to communicate messages that will make you likable and similar to the panel. So I'm going to pause right here at the moment and just wait for questions, because we know we're opening a little bit of a can of worms. And depending on where the questions will go, we will then adopt the rest of the flow.
So maybe and I'll come back to what Chris has brought up as well. Oh, sorry, Tim, go ahead.
I just wanted to talk about the STAR process.
Mhm.
Had an interview with Northrop, and they used the STAR method. One of the things that I did run into is they talked about values and said they were going to word their questions related to their company values, but then when they did ask the questions, it was completely off value. It was more of, hey, here's a situation, this, that, and the other, and you had to go through the process. So it kind of will throw you off a little bit when they say, hey, we're going to do values, but then the question just completely just veers off 180 degrees.
Mhm. And often by design. And that's also a tactic to evaluate your flexibility and your adaptability. And that's why you can still answer using the, situation, context, action, and outcome, and have, kind of a database of these ready for you based on the job that you're applying for. But you're right, there's often a just an evaluation beyond what the question is being asked, right? And that's where taking the time, pausing, and trying to connect with your interviewer, especially if it's around values and revisiting those, is a way that you can bring back the story and then just move into what you've learned and how they might bring it back to the values. You can always ask an interviewer, you can always reflect as well.
In a situation like this, a good tactic is to, because again, if we go from the behavioral point of view, which is how we should be approaching an interview, they are looking for an answer, not the right answer. They are looking for an answer that would make, ideally, they would like to hear someone respond in the way that they would respond to that question or in that situation. It helps. You're probably all familiar with Myers-Briggs personality type indicators. You probably know yours as well, but it's a good practice to try to assess them as quickly as you can when you're speaking to another person, at least to try to drop them into 4 big buckets, like which type they're likely to be, or which combination of types they're likely to be. And typically you'll get like 3 or 4 of those big, kind of that are distinctively different. But once you know what kind of type that person is, which archetype they follow, it's much easier to give them the answers and understand what they're specifically looking for in that answer. And because what will resonate with them the most and what will get you the higher chances of being the person they choose is not the answer that you have given, is how much do you answer like the interviewer would.
Chris, do you have a question?
I'd like to let Joel and Timothy go first. I'm just going to kind of save my questions for when there is like a lull and there's not a lot of
Okay.
questions. So I'll let Joel and Timothy go first.
Okay. Joel, you're next, I think.
Good morning or good afternoon or good evening. I'm not sure. Um, so, so
I
my
think
thing
they're
is,
so evening.
so one of my biggest things during the interview, and I did quite a few already. When we get to that point where there's a long, awkward silence, and I feel like I need to speak more, or I'm waiting for them to ask me something else, or what do I do in that moment to, fill that gap, that long, awkward silence, and that kind of makes you feel uncomfortable, like something is going wrong.
Joel, that's a fantastic question. So let's try to do what we're trying to preach here. So imagine now yourself that you are the person interviewing someone, and there are things that you would like to test for. You would like to see, for example, how this person behaves under pressure or in an uncomfortable situation, which you simply create by pausing. What would you expect to see?
I guess to see how they respond or see if they have any questions.
It could be anything else, any other ideas?
I don't know.
So, for example, one of the critical leadership skills, especially when applying for more senior roles, is composure. So it's the ability to stay calm under pressure. An easy way to test for composure is to simply go silent.
Have you guys met a lot of interviewers that are intentionally, consciously doing this, or do you think sometimes it's just a bad interviewer?
It's
Bad
probably
interviewer.
both. Yeah, I do this intentionally a lot, both in terms of creating pressure in the moment, because nothing will tell me more about the candidate than actually putting them in a situation that they didn't expect. It's not what they written down and they say, oh, I can work under pressure, I can remain composed in a stressful situation, so I just test for it. But you're right, there will be a lot of interviewers that are just bad.
But another
Go
thing
ahead.
that we recommend too is when you start to feel that pressure, I mean, you probably know this, but deep breathing, not this kind of thing, just like check in physically how you are. This is true for whether there's an intentional silence or any silence that requires some pause or redirection of your own thoughts. If you can take a couple of deep breaths and then answer or wait or ask what the next step is or give your thoughts, sometimes that's enough to let those emotions kind of move on so that you can come back to the present and what's happening in the interview. And just to come back to Sheila, what you've asked, for most of the interviews for upper management, executive director roles, I have yet to see an interview where that doesn't happen on purpose. So it is very frequent, and luckily, probably most of you are very well equipped to manage that. But if the interviewer is also just writing continuously, you might even build in intentional pauses in between your answers as well, to
Yes.
establish authority and those kinds of things as well.
And to enable the interviewer actually to catch up the process of writing down. My personal recommendation is that from the moment that you've seen if they're taking the notes, from the moment they stop doing something and just look at you, to give them comfortable 4 to 5 seconds at least before you choose to say something. Typically, if there's a prolonged silence on their side, again, taking more than 5 seconds, I would just bounce it back to them. I said, is this what you expected to hear in this answer? Or would you like me to, is there any other details you'd like me to provide? And leave the ball in their court, go silent again.
Let's squeeze in one more question, and then if you guys are okay with it, we'll let them try and push through a little more of their presentation before we have to stop. So Timothy, go ahead with yours.
Hi, thanks for coming to talk to us today. So my question is, with answering the questions how you think that they want you to answer them, or trying to be like them, isn't that not showing diversity? Aren't most of these companies looking to hire something different, something diverse? There's a reason they need to hire, like they don't want all the same cookie cutter people. So shouldn't you be highlighting how you're different with the way that you think and solve problems?
It's a great question, but the reality is what you should be doing is making sure you land the job, you get the offer. Now, you don't know what the agenda of the interviewer might be. They might have something hidden from the conversation that you're simply not aware of, but you cannot control for these things. Some companies do have diversity targets. For example, they need to hire a certain proportion of people of a certain background, but you don't know that in the interview. So that probably shouldn't be something that distracts you from that process.
I also want to just clarify too that when we talk about a diverse candidate and bringing new experience in, that can be very different than how you manage your human to human interaction in the interview. So if you have this really unique experience that is really applicable to the job or the company or the vision or the values that they're hiring for, that's already hopefully clear to them because you are in an interview now. So now your job is to connect with the human, essentially, and you can highlight that in the way that still aligns with the job and the expectations of the interviewer, because they have a checklist and they have directives and they need to evaluate for certain things in a way that still makes you stand out, your personality, your experience, but also is memorable to them because you will have reminded them of themselves after. Your job is to have the interviewer talk about you after the interview is over. They are your advocate. Yes, they have to complete a process and fill out a form. But what you'd like is for them to, when it comes back, the conversation comes back to whether you are the best candidate and why that company needs to hire you now. They don't need to go through their notes. They will remember, yeah, Tim was the best. Tim, we need to hire him. And I feel that he is the best candidate. So it's, there's a balance between being authentic and telling about what your experience is, of course. But if you can maybe mirror a little bit of how they ask questions, how they restate what they're looking for, make it a more of a conversation that's memorable. It becomes less about the technical aspects and your ideas and how you will actually interact with someone once you're there. That's how if you approach those conversations a little bit differently, that might be a little bit different than how others might interview, especially with the edge that you have, knowing personality and maybe how they might interact as well.
Yeah, let's continue with questions. I think
Thanks.
that's because there are plenty. Yeah, let's continue with questions. It's more important than the slides.
I think Derek, you have your hand up. Hello.
Hi, how are you? Derek Welch here. So there's a few people out there that have been talking about neuroscience a lot. You guys are both doctors, right? So how do you take what, we're learning about the brain and apply it to our tactics in the interview, right? It's kind of what you're going over now, but is there a more like a deeper explanation, scientifically or like from a doctor's perspective of how we can kind of control our fate in our interview process by creating that confidence layer in ourselves by knowing how we can use use neuroscience to do that?
Derek, you already are confident. And if
Thank
there's
you.
anything that, because otherwise you wouldn't be doing the job that you have been doing. And if there's something that takes that confidence away in an interview, you deal with this in exactly the same way as you have dealt with it before, which is through training. It's if you haven't went through 500 interviews, it's really difficult to be really good at this and feel very confident. So just get the training in. So buy a book of Amazon with the examples of what the questions in the interview look like and what the likely answers are. Get two of your other buddies, get a couple of snacks, sit at a table and alternate. One is the interviewer, the other one is an interviewee, and one person observes and takes the notes, gives feedback, and then you change. And it's not only like over time it becomes fun, but it also makes you good. Practice, rehearse, be ready.
And when you do that, what can you give us a technical explanation of like how that changes our brain waves and what's happening with that? Because
Yes.
a lot of people are confused on, and even myself are confused on how those two tie together, right? When you're talking about it, because we're not doctors, we haven't been studying neuroscience, but you guys have.
Yes.
So like, let us know what it is,
Can I start and then maybe we can get more technical? Okay, the simplest way is that you need to give your brain evidence of whatever it is that you are trying to achieve, because your brain will always try to protect you by reducing the amount of energy it's going to put in. It's going to always default to the familiar, whether that's good, bad, safe, whatever. That's what your brain is designed to do. Preserve energy and pull on your previous experiences or your previous thoughts to keep you from doing the things that are new. So when we talk about like neuroscience and changing and rewiring, it's simply allowing you to tell your brain, no, there's a different way to do this. I'm still safe. So I'm going to come back to the breathing and the feeling awkward in a pause moment. That's your tendency to want to talk or to want to do something or doodle or whatever it is. I've been in that situation many times too, is in a way your brain kind of saying something is different and this is going to not go well and you need to talk and all those nervous things, and you need to come up with a way, whether it's something physical like breathing or other strategies that you can use to rewire those thoughts and give it evidence. So that's the more awareness that you have around what your own defaults are, the easier and the faster it will be for you to change them on your own. So if you're used to ways of working or ways of doing things that are so default, but now they're kind of preventing you from being able to win an interviewer or network a certain way or whatever it is, you have to give your brain evidence to the contrary. Maybe Matt, you can elaborate.
So, as in any high stakes situation, you like an interview, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall back to the lowest level of your training. If you haven't practiced, it will be difficult. And going back to what is happening in your brain during the interview process is exactly that. You go into an unfamiliar, relatively high stakes situation. So it will play all the tricks on you that it can. And unless you have practiced and you feel comfortable in that situation, it will be difficult. So again, practice, prepare, and it does not require external people. You can just do it with a couple of friends. Just become comfortable with the process. It will show. You will communicate this. If you're familiar, if you're comfortable, people will see that. You will come across as that as well.
Chris, go ahead.
Hey, what's going on? What I'm going to try to do here is summarize a couple of things that I think I've been seeing in the comments and kind of what we've been talking about to try to keep the conversation going, to meet the masses. For Derek's question, I'm sure you guys are familiar with this term, neuro-linguistical programming, or NLP for short. Derek, you can go Google NLP if you want to know the physiology behind exactly what we're talking about. And reprogramming your mind, just reprogramming your mind. So NLP, or neuro-linguistical programming. The other thing I've seen a lot about the whole answering questions the way that the interviewer, kind of providing the answers that the interviewer is looking for to some of these questions. And that may be conflicting with authenticity in terms of who you are. And I would just encourage people, it's not about being someone that you're not when you're in the interview process, but look at it from the lens of not only are they trying to see if you fit their culture, right, for the organization, but also you should be evaluating, does the company fit the culture of a company that I'm looking to be a part of as well? So it's kind of like any, you go out there and you make friends, or you're meeting somebody for the first time, you're kind of gauging that, is this somebody that we have common interests, common background? Is this somebody that I can see myself engaging in, communication with on a regular basis? That's kind of the mindset I would encourage people to have when they go to these interview processes. And to Matt's point, and I think Sarah might have made the point as well, when you guys are doing these interview things, I would just get the word interview out of your mind and don't even think about it like an interview. It's just a conversation. I think with social media, it's made it, we've kind of went away from having interpersonal communication in person. And it's all like online now. So really, if you want to get comfortable with those interview things, I would just encourage you to just go talk to strangers, go meet people. And it doesn't even need to be about a job or a company. It can be about anything, but just putting yourself out there and just having those conversations that might go in 17 different directions. And I feel like that will help kind of make you more comfortable with some of those ambiguous environments you might encounter. So I just want to hear your guys' perspective on those things, to see what else you feel like you could provide to us.
You already have everything that it takes to nail the interviews. And it's not about being inauthentic. Getting the job done, like winning the interview process is, and using everything that you know and is available to you to win that process. So going and getting what you want is part of being authentic and true to who you already are. There's nothing wrong with this. The people who are sitting on the other side of the table are also not themselves. they don't sit on a TV, eat and at the same time in their underwear, scratch their bits of their body and do whatever the things that people authentically do in public. They use a certain language, they behave in a certain way in that particular scenario. So do you. It's not about telling them your life story. Your job is to win the interviewer so that you get an offer. That's it. And being able to do that, it's a skill. It's something that you can learn. So I do encourage you never to think of yourself that you're inauthentic when you're trying to get the job done. Because later when you land that corporate job, it's all about getting what needs to be done in the right way. And the interview process is it's the same part of this. You already have all it takes to win those interviews.
And as far as rewiring and the specific things, Derek and others, that you can do to develop the awareness and the strategies to get your brain to show up for you when you need it, what we'll also do is send all of our slides over, and there's some clickable links with some very specific exercises that you can embed into your daily practice that will help as well. And if you have other questions, we're happy to help you with that too.
Yes, I think Monique, you have a hand up as well.
Hi, good morning. When Sarah was talking about how our brain resorts to the defects, that kind of reminded me of there's a therapy called eye movement desensitization and reprogramming, especially for people with who's had like some head traumas, and it basically is like your brain is always in a loop, and so you envision, you try to remember what you smell, what you taste, what you heard, and then you associate a positive memory with those sensations to try to basically reset the default. And I just wanted to, I'm going to share a link about it regarding interviews and how the eye movement desensitization and reprocessing helps with interview. So I feel like somebody might find some value out of that. So.
Yeah, EMDR. Thanks for sharing that. All right. Do
Hey,
you
Matt.
guys?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
I was gonna ask you, was that some wine there that I saw? I mean, I know you're in England, so
I wish. No, I wish. It's
I was
just
like,
tea.
I was stationed in England for 4 years, and I saw London on your LinkedIn profile, and I was like, I love London. It's like my favorite city. But yeah, I was like, oh, he must be sipping wine because you guys are a little bit ahead of us. So tea.
I wish. Yes, unfortunately, it's just tea. Yeah.
I feel like I could talk to you guys all day, but do you have any parting words before we have to part ways?
Just to reiterate that we want you to be memorable and forward thinking. And the thing that you have the most control over is your time to prepare for these interviews, for these situations, for your future. You have a lot of rich experience. You have a lot of insights, ideas, qualifications that make you uniquely positioned to win these conversations. And if you spend that time preparing your brain and your body, then we think that you'll be in a great position. It just does take practice and preparation.
Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. Jordy did already yield a few extra minutes to us. But thank you guys so much for being here. Like I said, I could talk to you guys all day. You have so much good insight. Hopefully, we'll be able to see you back sometime.
Thank you for having us. We'll send over our materials and anything we can do to help any of you. We're happy to help. So thank you.
Yeah, just please let us know. We'll make ourselves available.
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
happy Veterans Day next week. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.